Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Trek, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of the original series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, or Enterprise. Today I'm looking at the Galileo 7 from the original series' first season, or as I like to call it, that time gold was the new red. This episode was requested by Chris Adams. Thank you for the suggestion, and let's get going. We begin the episode with, ooh, pretty! So no wonder they want to poke around it. But this guy has a point. Nice suit. Kirk's mission is to deliver emergency medical supplies, so he'd like that taken care of, please. Kirk is like, nah, and launches the Galileo with Spock in command of a bunch of randos, and Scotty and McCoy. So this isn't going to end well, is it? They get immediately into trouble, but Uhura can't make out they're a distress call, and they drop off sensors, so now they could be anywhere. And into the credits we go. The quasar is screwing up their scanners, so finding the Galileo is going to be next to impossible. So this guy I told you so's over coffee. But Uhura points out there is a planet nearby that could sustain human life, and are these sprouts? Everyone is a little worse for wear. Shit, look at all these patients! And Boma surmises they were shot like a rocket into the center of the quasar. Whee! That sounds like fun! McCoy says the air is breathable, so out you go, randos! And Spock says due to the interference, Enterprise won't be able to find them, not so long as they're on the ground. And Kirk can't beam anyone down. Jeez, dude, I know Kirk is an idiot, but enough with the I told you so. Spock and Scotty decide to have a conversation in this position, and due to the lack of fuel, 3 people would have to stay behind in order to be light enough to take off. And Boma doesn't like that idea, seeing as Spock would choose. These 2 obviously gold red shirts find the planet's fog machine supply and hear weird noises all around them before, oop, that's a comically oversized spear to this stunt double's back. The other guy randomly fires at stuff which brings Spock and Boma running, but there's nothing there anymore, and Boma is not impressed about how blasé Spock is about the dude's death. Just bring him with you. The shuttle Kirk sent out hasn't turned up anything yet, and they're running out of time.
24 more hours, Captain.
Alright, dude, we get it. Are these 2 going to keep having weirdly positioned conversations? They're still overweight, so Spock wants to sacrifice someone to the planet to save everyone else. But Boma interrupts, wanting to throw a funeral for the dead dude. And this looks exactly like a Play-Doh rolling pin. Spock doesn't want to be bothered by all this nonsense, so McCoy tells him off, and after some tinkering, Scotty announces they're out of fuel. So they'll all be staying behind, before McCoy drags everyone outside. Boma legit wants to find the thing and punch it in the face, but Spock doesn't want to resort to violence, and an argument breaks out. So Spock pulls rank and they go for a nose around until someone drops their shit on them. Sneaky, sneaky! Spock orders them to fire warning shots, which seem to work, and then he and Boma retreat, leaving this poor guy to red-shirt it up. And back at the shuttle, Scotty says he's figured out a way to use their phasers as fuel, but that will of course leave them defenseless. Spock goes around collecting everyone's phasers and gives a not-so-inspiring speech.
If we burn up in a decaying orbit, or die here on the planet's surface, we shall surely die.
While up on Enterprise, they get their transporters working, so Kirk calls all red shirts to report for rescue duty. This poor guy is still a sitting duck as he gets a visit from Chewbacca, and he just sort of sits there with a weird look on his face as the thing shuffles towards him and kills him. That's a Bigfoot. Did it just hop once while the guy didn't bother to run away? Anyway, Spock hands over both phasers before wandering off, where he comes across the guy's body and carts him back. Really? Mind the rocks? Those cost money, and you just hit that dude. He makes it back to the shuttle, and where did these rocks just outside the window come from? Because they're not there in the previous shot. Spock has a think about this. McCoy full-on tells Spock off for not killing these things, just pissing them off, as one comes a knock-knock-knocking, causing his whole crew, what's left of them, to turn against him. Oh my god, this guy is still counting down. Sod off! Spock orders his crew to stop, drop and roll as Scotty electrifies the ship to scare off the thing. And Boma wants a second funeral, and looks like Enterprise will be doing the same because one of their landing party is dead. And this guy reports the creature to Kirk. Oh joy, it's this asshole again, and he says they're out of time. So Kirk has to recall the search parties and prepare to leave, as does the Galileo, but first a quick funeral, which ends in an attack, and Spock trapped. And despite his orders to leave him behind, McCoy and Boma rescue him, and they all lift off together. With the Enterprise gone and not enough fuel to land again, Spock tells everyone how screwed they are, but out of nowhere decides to jettison and ignite their fuel. Pretty! And while his crew thinks he's gone nuts, Enterprise spots them, and as the shuttle starts to burn up, they're beamed away. Uhura reports 5 people were safely transported, and Kirk's like, cool! Don't you care what happened to the other 2? Kirk ends the episode by mocking Spock about his illogical actions, and Spock eyebrow raises us out of here. Immediate thoughts. This feels very similar to the episode I reviewed last week, Soldiers of the Empire. Someone commanding a ship, encountering a hostile foe, and making decisions that his crew disagree with, to the point they almost mutiny, only for him to pull off some crazy stunt to make his crew respect him. I enjoyed that one, and I enjoyed this one, especially seeing as it focused on Spock, because I'm not a fan of Kirk at all. My complaint about Soldiers of the Empire was you had no concept of time, whereas this episode had the opposite problem. You knew exactly how much time had passed and how much was left because they created a very annoying character to remind you of that. And the worst part is, he wasn't even necessary. If they had removed the Commissioner character, it would have elevated the episode and Kirk. Picture this. Everything plays out exactly the same, but instead of Kirk abandoning the search for the Galileo because that guy nagged him to, he instead had a moral struggle over what to do, before ultimately deciding to give up on the search to fulfill his duties to those who needed the medicine. And then the ending could have played out the same. I think I would have respected Kirk more for having to make the decision to leave rather than being forced into it. And as an added bonus, we wouldn't have had to put up with the Commissioner. From Spock's side of things, I felt kind of sorry for him. In all his wisdom, he was a little bit clueless. His command style would have worked had he had a crew of Vulcans, so it was interesting to watch him come to terms with his logic failing to inspire his very human crew. In a way, it's similar to the Voyager episode Learning Curve, where Tuvok is trying to train converted Maquis crew members and struggles to do so because they don't adhere to his logic. As usual, Spock's face tells 1,000 stories, and I really liked the diverse cast in this one. And while the creatures were a little silly looking and the effects were a little bit low budget, it has a certain charm to it, and the quasar looked fantastic, so good job everyone. So there you have it. That was the Galileo 7. If there's an episode of Star Trek you'd like me to cover, pop it down in the comments below or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want to be assimilated into my channel. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and live long and prosper.